Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're diving into a story that begins with an unexpected discovery, a routine patrol along a quiet riverbank leading to an unraveling mystery. Imagine the murky waters concealing a forgotten relic, a bright yellow Corvette submerged and untouched for years. But what secrets could it hold? As the car is pulled from the depths, the truth inside challenges everything a small town thought it knew about its past. Stay with us as we uncover the twists and turns of this captivating tale. While conducting a routine patrol near the riverbank, officers noticed the outline of an object submerged in the murky waters. Closer inspection revealed it to be an old Corvette, long rumored to be lost but never confirmed. The recovery operation attracted local attention, and as the car was finally pulled from the depths, anticipation grew. What they discovered inside the car sent ripples through the community, challenging everything they thought they knew. Officer Maddie had quickly managed to set up an operation capable of carefully getting the water-damaged Corvette out of the lake. He could still barely believe that it had finally been found after all those years. Everybody had given up the search at some point, even him. As Maddie watched the car get pulled out of the lake by the capable hands and equipment of the crew he assembled, he thought back to 5 years ago when this Corvette and its owner were on the tips of everybody's tongue. The owner of the car was named George Kennedy, but in the town he went by many names. He was a very rich man who held a lot of secrets about how he got his money. It was very clear he was involved in some shady business. What made him even scarier was that it seemed like he had more power than the mayor of the town. At some point, the rich city overlord had over half the police force of the town on his payroll, which meant he could get away with nearly anything. That is exactly what he did. Maddie and a group of other detectives had set out to finally get the truth about this guy. They were doing a lot of investigations in absolute secret, and had actually been making some progress. However, George Kennedy had gotten tipped off by a corrupt member of the team and had started supposedly destroying evidence of his businesses. Maddie and his crew knew they needed to act quickly, but were too late. George's house was going up in flames when they arrived, and they just about saw his yellow Corvette speed off. They did their best to chase the car down, but he had already gotten too much ground on them, and they lost him in the nearby forest. Maddie was afraid that this meant every chance they had of ever finding substantial evidence to put George behind bars was now lost. Everybody was tasked to keep an eye out for the car, but it was not seen again. The fact that they found it by complete coincidence was even more bizarre. Maddie had just been on a routine patrol near the old riverbank. The water level had significantly decreased due to the everlasting drought of the past couple of weeks, and it had apparently decreased enough for some things to come to the surface, like a very familiar yellow car roof. When Maddie first saw it, he had no doubt about what it was. It was unmistakable, the roof of a yellow Corvette, and there was only one of those he had ever seen around here. With the car now finally fully out of the water, Maddie could do what he had wanted to do for so many years: look for evidence. Maddie and his team combed through the soggy interior of the Corvette. They pulled out mats, checked beneath seats, and even tapped on the dashboard, hoping for hidden compartments. Under the back seat, tucked away in almost part of the car's frame, was a small watertight box. Maddie pulled the box free, noting its unusual weight. Back at the station, Maddie cracked open the box with a set of sturdy tools. Inside, snug in a foam cutout, was a single notebook, its pages dense with coded text. The officers gathered around, their curiosity piqued. It was clear they were dealing with a sophisticated encryption method that none of them had encountered before. Attempts to decipher the code on the spot were futile. They tried common decryption techniques, substitution ciphers, transpositions, even looking for digital keys within the notebook's margins. Nothing worked. The more they tried, the more it seemed they were missing something crucial. Maddie decided it was time to call in the big guns. "We need someone who can crack this," he declared, scanning the room for agreement. Nods affirmed his decision. Tomorrow he would reach out to cryptography experts who could possibly make sense of the mysterious notebook. Maddie spent the morning compiling a list of cryptography experts who might crack the code. By noon, he had a solid list of candidates and began reaching out, hopeful for a breakthrough. He sent emails to the experts, attaching images of the coded pages. "We found something unique and could use your insight," he typed. Each email was a blend of a formal request and an urgent plea for help. Responses trickled in throughout the day. Several experts were intrigued by the challenge, their replies a mix of technical jargon and palpable excitement. Maddie also met with Officer Jen, who dabbled in amateur cryptography. They spread out the notebook on a table in the back room, poring over the mysterious script together. They decided to meet regularly, aiming to crack the code themselves if external help fell short. Their collaborative spirit was a small beacon of hope amidst the daunting challenge. Michael, a cryptography expert from out of state, sent back an optimistic email. "This looks like something I can tackle," he wrote. He requested more detailed images to get a closer look at the intricate coding. Maddie felt a surge of hope. Maybe they were finally on the right track to cracking the code inside the mysterious notebook. Jen began analyzing the symbols methodically, jotting down her observations and theories. It was a long shot, but her enthusiasm breathed new life into the investigation. Collaborative sessions kicked off with Maddie coordinating between Michael and Jen. He relayed findings, shared insights, and scheduled video calls to discuss progress. After several days, both Michael and Jen shared their preliminary findings with the team over secure channels. Michael's analysis came back faster than expected. His message was clear. The content seemed to be nothing more than mundane lists, possibly groceries. "It's everyday stuff," his email concluded. Maddie stared at the screen, the words not quite making sense. All this secrecy for grocery lists? It didn't add up. Disheartened, Maddie shared the news with his team. "Grocery lists, really?" he scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief. The significance of such a carefully hidden document being so trivial baffled him. Feeling misled, Maddie vented his frustration in a team meeting. "We might have hit a dead end," he admitted reluctantly. Despite the setback, Jen, the in-house code-breaking enthusiast, urged the team not to give up. "There's something off about this. It's too elaborate for groceries," she insisted. Her conviction sparked a small flame of hope in the room. She vowed to keep working on the notebook, convinced there was more to uncover. Jen spent days with the notebook, her focus unyielding. Finally, she cracked the code, revealing it was not about groceries at all. The notebook actually listed detailed records of illicit transactions and contacts. Dates, amounts, and cryptic names filled its pages. This wasn't mundane at all. It was a detailed ledger of underground activities. This was the kind of evidence they needed to reignite their stalled investigation. Maddie felt a surge of hope as Jen shared her findings. The investigation, once stalled by disappointment, now had new momentum. He decided it was time for a direct confrontation. Could Michael have deliberately misled them? It was a question that needed answering, and Maddie was determined to find out the truth. With the notebook's true significance revealed, Maddie quickly planned their next moves. "We need to dig deeper into every name and transaction listed here," he directed his team. They needed to act fast, understanding the full scope of what they had uncovered. Maddie confronted Michael in a tense, closed-door session. He pressed him about the misleading analysis, suspecting a deeper connection with George. Michael's nervous demeanor only fueled Maddie's suspicions. Under relentless pressure, Michael finally cracked. He admitted to previous dealings with George, revealing that he had been pressured to throw the police off track. This new revelation reshaped the case, providing a direct link between Michael and George's shady operations. With Michael's admission, Maddie and his team gathered to strategize their next moves. They mapped out Michael's connections to George using the notebook's information as a guide. Their goal was clear: find George's current whereabouts. They scrutinized financial records, phone logs, and known associates. Every piece of data was a potential clue, and Maddie made sure no stone was left unturned. After discovering incriminating evidence at Michael's home, Maddie confronted him about his ties to George. With Michael's involvement confirmed, the team met to discuss their next steps. "We've got a real shot at George now," Maddie said, laying out their strategy. The team enhanced their surveillance and intelligence gathering efforts, determined to close in on George. Using Michael's detailed information, they monitored known associates and tracked financial transactions linked to his operations. Armed with a warrant, police officers stormed into Michael's house early in the morning. They swept through each room, uncovering hard drives, documents, and encrypted digital files. It was a treasure trove of evidence, potentially holding the keys to George's operations. Each piece of evidence was meticulously logged and taken for in-depth analysis. The initial analysis of the seized materials was promising. Among the digital clutter, they found recent communications between Michael and George. Emails and encrypted messages sketched a picture of ongoing collusion. Under the weight of the evidence and intense questioning, Michael finally cracked. He disclosed a possible location for George, a hideout he'd mentioned in passing. This was the breakthrough Maddie had been hoping for, a solid lead on George's whereabouts that could lead to his capture. With a new lead in hand, Maddie coordinated a tactical operation to capture George. He briefed his team on the location, outlining the approach and assigning roles. Surveillance teams confirmed George's presence in the Bahamas. Not only was he there, but he also appeared to be actively continuing his criminal enterprises. Maddie reviewed the surveillance footage himself, noting George's interactions and the network he was operating. This was the solid lead they needed to coordinate an international operation. Maddie led the charge in an international effort to apprehend George, working closely with local Bahamian authorities. The arrest was swift and precise. George was caught off guard during a routine meeting at a local cafe. Despite being handcuffed, he remained arrogantly confident, smirking as he claimed, "You've got nothing on me." Little did he know Maddie's team had built a solid case back home. Extradition proceedings started immediately. The case against George was ironclad, facilitated by the detailed evidence Maddie's team had compiled. Legal documents were filed and hearings were set. The process was expedited due to the severity of the charges and the strength of the international cooperation. Back at the police department, the team began preparing meticulously for the upcoming trial. Every document, every piece of digital evidence, and every bit of surveillance footage was cataloged and reviewed. The courtroom was packed as the trial against George commenced. Central to the case was the notebook, presented as the key piece of evidence. It contained detailed records of George's criminal contacts and illicit activities, enough to convict him for life. The prosecution laid out the contents methodically, ensuring every entry was highlighted in front of the jury. As the details of the notebook were exposed, the defense found it increasingly difficult to counter. The prosecutors used the evidence effectively, tying George directly to a range of illegal activities. The judge delivered a guilty verdict, sentencing George to life imprisonment due to the overwhelming evidence laid before the court. The sentence was a direct result of the meticulous work by Maddie and his team, who had ensured that every piece of evidence was irrefutable. The courtroom was silent as the reality of the judgment set in. Following the trial, Maddie and his team were commended for their perseverance and dedication. The successful conclusion of this case closed a significant chapter in their careers, marking a major victory against organized crime. Their thorough investigation and the conclusive evidence they gathered were celebrated by the department and the community.